Good morning. Today we're going to be talking about how you can carry on improving your kite surfing after 40. And I want to start with a little story. Good friend of mine, let's call him Dave. I'm not going to name him personally. But at 30 years old, he was an amazing kite surfer. He was also super fit, probably one of the fittest people I knew at the time. He's now 45. He's given up kite surfing and he's sofa bound pretty much. He rarely gets out, certainly doesn't do any sports, any activities. Why? Well, what happened when Dave was about 32, he very innocuously, just walking down the street, tripped over the paving slab, something that happens to a lot of us, just something really, really innocuous, and tweaked his knee. Nothing major. But what happened was that from then, every time he did sport, it started to hurt. So he started doing less and less and less sport. And that in itself led to this vicious cycle whereby because he did less, when he did do sport, he enjoyed it less because he was less fit. He also found because he was doing less exercise, he was more likely to get injured and started to get injured an awful lot more. But by the time he was 40, it was just every time he went kite surfing, he was coming back with a new injury, to the point where I think it was about 2-3 years ago, he just said, right, that's it, I'm fed up. I'm getting injured all the time. I'm giving up. I'm selling my kites. I'm moving on. And, he traces it back now to that really, really innocuous injury of just literally tripping over a paving slab. How ridiculous. So what I want to talk about today is, look, how can we avoid this? Because this is something that I hear over and over and over again. And it comes down to this, is that injury for most of us, sort of 35, 40, 50, 60, injury is the main reason that we end up eventually either giving up these sports or certainly doing a lot less of them than we'd like, or, just not being able to push it as hard as we could when we were 25, 30. And that's what generally leads us slowing down our level of improvement. There's no real excuse for this because this is totally avoidable. And I'm going to go into how we do that later on in the video. But I want to, get it in your mind that this is probably public enemy number one as we age. It's not lack of energy. It's not lack of sleep. It's not lack of anything else. It's the fact that our muscles get older. They become more susceptible to injury. And as they get injured, that instantly means you've got a month, 2, 3 months off the water, off doing what you love to do, which knocks you backwards. But then when you get back on the water, you've got to regain your fitness, get back to where you were, regain your confidence, which gets harder and harder with age because we've got all these other things that are declining at the same time. So how do we go about doing this? How do we go about becoming more resistant to injury so that we can keep on improving, until the age of 80, 90, 100, whatever? And the answer is we youth our muscles. Now, if you think about this, a child of 5, for example, can go from sitting around for ages, playing on a computer, playing on the, whatever it is these days, Xbox, PlayStation, and they go from there, playing for 5 hours, to a full sprint in a second, no problems. You try doing that when you're 45 or 50, and I guarantee for most of us, that will mean you pulled up short for about 10 meters, with a hamstring injury, a knee tweak, something gone wrong somewhere that just stops you from doing it. And this is simply because our muscles get older. Now, when I say older, what I actually mean is they become more knotted. Okay, a young muscle is soft, it's pliable, and all the muscle fibers, more or less, run in the same direction. As we get older, what happens, because we've been sitting around, at desks, because we've been playing sports and getting injured and not recovering from that injury properly, our muscles get knotted. Those fibers become like a spaghetti junction. And what it means now is that muscle is being pulled tenser, denser, and tighter. So it's much more susceptible to injury because there's just not as much suspension in the system. So when it does twist in the wrong way, or when you impact it in the wrong way, it's much more likely to just explode and cause damage. And then it takes longer to heal as well because the blood flow can't get to that knot as well because all the muscle fibers are this spaghetti junction. So what we need to do is youth our muscles, but what I mean by that is actually just straighten out the fibers. It's actually fairly straightforward. That's the major difference between someone who's 40, 45, 50's muscles and someone who's 5's muscles, is that just the way that they're actually aligned, the way that they're constructed. So how did we get here? How have we got to this point where this is such a factor? Well, there's a lot of it is based on the way that we train as we are growing up. Now, there's this contradiction right at the heart of the exercise industry. And it's this idea that whatever works for Usain Bolt, for Ronaldo, for Lionel Messi, whatever works for them will work for us. And it's this kind of trickle-down effect. Now, that's great, and it does work. I'm not saying this doesn't work. It works really, really well. The problem is that when you look at these people, when you look at Usain Bolt, maybe not like Lionel Messi and Ronaldo probably aren't the best examples, but take a younger football player, someone who is just trying to make the team this week. All they care about is, are they ready to perform right now? And that is what the exercise industry has been built on. It's been built on working with players like that. So it's developed an awful lot of things which actually aren't designed to keep you performing at a high level for a long period of time, i.e. past 30, 40, 50. With most football players, once you hit 30, your career is pretty much over. Yes, people are pushing it now, now these days because of new techniques that we're going to talk about in a minute. But that is the traditional wisdom, that you've got kind of that age between 18 and 30, and after that, forget about it, your body's just not going to work. And at the heart of this contradiction is what I call the more longer model. And it's this, and it does work. There's absolutely no denying this works, the more longer model, but it works short term, and it's designed specifically to make sure that you make the team this week. Okay, so it works. And what is it? Well, it's basically this concept, we've all heard of it. The way to get fit is to do more, higher intensity, more reps, more sets, or to do it for longer. And again, it works. It's basic science. If you do the exercise more and more and more and more and more at higher intensity, you're going to get fitter. The problem is, at the same time, what you are doing is you are increasing the amount of wear and tear on the body to a huge level. Now, at 20, you can get away with that. It's fine because your body just bounces back. It just eats it up. Give me more, give me more, give me more. When you're 40 and you try and do the same thing, or 50 or 60, you're much more likely to just break. Because especially if you've been doing that for the last 20, 30, 40 years, your muscles are now so old, dense, tight, unable to repair themselves, unable to get blood flow through them because they've got these knots in them, that it means that you are just, you cannot sustain that method of training any longer. So what's the solution? How do we get around this? Well, I've actually written a book that goes deep into the training aspects of this. The link's in the notes below. It's free. Go over there. Yes, you put your email in, download it. It's free. And it goes deep. It gives you all the workouts, all the special ways that I recommend to actually build a long-term workout. But in a nutshell, what we're talking about is movement. Tons and tons of movement. Movement I distinguish from exercise. Movement is something you can do all day without really worrying about it. And you know what I mean. Walking, light swimming, very easy bike riding, things like that. That's movement, stuff that just gets the blood flowing. Why? Because the circulatory system and the lymphatic system, the system which cleans the toxins out of your muscles, are activated by movement. If we want to grow muscles and keep muscles young and healthy, we need to ensure they've got a good supply of nutrients and oxygen, which comes in through the blood supply, and that they are getting drained of the byproducts of being used by the lymphatic system. And the best way to do that is to move. So that forms the basis. Movement doesn't cause damage to the body either. That kind of movement repetitively done, as long as your body is more or less built straight, structurally it's fairly sound, That's not going to cause you any long-term damage. Then on top of that, we add in sort of every few hours a very, very small amount of strength training. So like press-ups, burpees, squats, whatever, something like that, just to really activate the system, to show it, look, you've got to keep the blood flowing. We need these muscles. These muscles are in use, following the use it or lose it ideology, i.e., by using these muscles, by just activating these muscles every now and again, we basically tell them, look, keep growing. You're going to be needed at some point. You're going to need to do more than this, but this is just a warner. This is just a warning to the body to keep these muscles here. Because if we don't give them that warning, or we give them it, well, first of all, if we don't give them that warning full stop, they tend to just disappear. If we give them that warning in a very, very intense fashion, i.e. we go and we do a 50-minute, really, really abusive workout, at that age of when we're now 40, 50, 60, what tends to happen is the body says, whoa, I can't cope with this. And that's when it breaks. Or it can need to recover for 4 days afterwards because you've absolutely destroyed me. So it's much more, so I'm not saying you can't do that, and you certainly can do that if you've managed to stay very, very fit up to this age. But for most people, by the time they reach 40, they've had kids, they've had a career, they've maybe let their fitness slide a little bit, and they think, oh, I used to be really fit when I was 20, 30, I'll just go and do a class of CrossFit. And you'll hear me going on about CrossFit. I don't hate CrossFit. I just don't think it's the best for most people, because this is exactly what they do. They go from being sedentary for 10 years to doing 3 classes of CrossFit a week, and then wonder why after 2 months, everything aches. They've got injuries here, and here. They've got all these niggles, and they just can't, they try and go kitesurfing. I've got no energy. I've just got no energy to do this. And it's because it's just too much too soon. So this is where kind of the system that I'm talking about in this book, 30-day plans, all the workouts, how to do all these things, how to build them into your life. It's all in there, all free. And then on top of that, what we do is we've got the movement in place. We've got this, what I call this activate sequence in place, where you go and you will just exercise every hour and a half. And it's literally 20 seconds, 30 seconds of exercise. So it's really, really, you can sneak off to the toilet at work, go and do 10 squats. Anyone can do that. But it just keeps telling the body, we're going to need this muscle, so don't get rid of it. And then on top of that, we have some very specific workouts which are designed to really, really kind of pump the body up, but not to absolutely destroy it, so that you can't go kite surfing, surfing, snowboarding, whatever it is that you want to be doing, but also it's not going to put too much wear and tear on the body. So it's something that is sustainable, years old quite happily, and that doesn't follow this more longer model. Other thing that is hugely, hugely important. So we've got the exercise, we've got the difference in the workout. We've taken that contradiction. We said, okay, we're not going to follow the more longer model. We're going to look at a different model. That's all in the book. As I say, go and download it. It's free. I think I've bangled enough about that now. I think you all know it's free and it's down there. What we do after we've done the workout, or before and after the workout, in fact, but the other thing that we kind of build around this is something called pliability. Now, this has been developed by Tom Brady, which I don't know if you know him, but he's 43, I think he is, maybe 44 now, quarterback of the Buccaneers, who are again at the Super Bowl. I don't know how this guy does it. It's like his 8th Super Bowl, and he's 43 years old in the NFL, he's American football, where most careers last 3 years, and he puts his success down to something called pliability. Now, it's basic, it's really, really simple, but this is why no one does it. This is what I find more and more. The simpler advice seems, the less people seem to think it's of any value. Classic case, drink more water. We all know it. Who does it? So pliability, basically, you've all seen them. It's these foam rollers that you get at the gym. Foam rollers and kind of spiky Death Star balls that you get at the gym. The difference with pliability, they vibrate. You turn them on, and they start vibrating. And then you just literally roll around, sort of making love to these foam rollers and spiky Death Star balls, getting them into all the parts of the muscles that hurt. And the idea is to get in to those knots, and this vibrating ball pounds these knots, just like you have in a deep tissue massage, breaks them down. So that then when they reform, they reform and young. And this is the key. This is why it's not old muscle, it's just damaged muscle. So by pliability, what you can do if you combine it with the right workout that's not going to cause more knots, i.e. the workout I've just talked about, and what you find is that over time, and this isn't something that happens overnight, it's something that happens over months, years, but what you find is that those muscles get longer, you get injured a lot less, you can you can go over this time from sitting in front of the telly for 5 hours, standing up and sprinting. Now, a word of warning, the two things that differ from pliability to just rolling around on a vibrating foam roller, pliability, the idea is that as you are rolling over the knots on this vibrating foam roller, so let's say you've got a knot here and you're rolling over on your shoulder, you are tensing and relaxing as you do it. And what this does, this is signaling to the muscle, lengthen, get softer, get more pliable. And what I tend to do these sessions now instead of a warm-up. So I will do a pliability session before I do exercise, and I will do a pliability session after I do exercise. And I spend as much time on pliability as I do on the actual workout. Why? Because for me, at my age now, it's much more important to me that my muscles stay long, stay soft, don't get injured, as it is that they're strong. You know, it's at least as important. For what I do, kite surfing, I don't need to be massively strong. What I need to be is flexible, have full range of motion, and not get injured, because that's really going to bugger up my week, month, year. Okay. So a lot of people say to me at this point, okay, well, that's great, Sam, but why is that any better than stretching? And there's nothing wrong with them. However, if I was given a choice between doing pliability and stretching, I would choose pliability every single time. Why? Again, go back to our model. You've got a bit of cord, okay, and that bit of cord in an undamaged muscle, is just a line of cord. In a damaged muscle, it's a line of cord with a knot in the middle. Now you do stretching and you stretch that cord. If you've got a damaged muscle, a cord with a knot in the middle of it, you are pulling that knot tighter. So yeah, you're lengthening the muscle, but you're actually at the same time, in a weird kind of roundabout way, making the muscle denser and making it harder to get that damage out in the future. So while I've got no problem with stretching, I would always say, look, do your pliability to get rid of the knots. I mean, if you can afford it, forget rolling around go twice a day, even better, especially if they're a pretty one or a good looking, that's perfect. Go and see a masseuse twice a day and get them to do this for you, get them to work the muscle, dig these knots out as you tense and relax the muscle. Perfect. And failing that, for most of us, we can't afford that. So it's just a case of making love to a foam roller instead. To a vibrating foam roller makes it a bit more fun. But this is why I would always choose pliability over stretching. Once you've got the muscles long, then think about stretching. And then, yoga at that point has some great benefits, as long as you don't overdo it. We don't want to get too flexible, because that causes its own problems with range of muscle and things like this. But so my two-step process for youthing my muscles, and this is what I do with myself and what I do with all my clients, is this: pliability and the work and the movement and the kind of the active work, the X fitness program, which again is all in the book. It's free. Go and download it. Please. It's all in there, including all the workouts, everything else you need to actually get going with this. So that's my two-step process for dealing with this, to hopefully stopping me from following my mate Dave and being sofa bound by the time I'm 45, to stop you getting injured. And it also helps you when if you do get injured, because we'll never be Wolverine, we'll never be 100% resistant to injury. But what it does mean, if you've done this prep work in advance, if you do get injured, you recover much more quickly. Why? Because you haven't got those knots in the muscles, so the blood can get to the muscles much, much easier. And the lymphatic system can clear out the stuff from the muscles much easier as well. So it helps you really with that, with recovering from injury as well. So it really is, it's a really, really simple thing. And if you it's going to take you any extra time, it's just changing your normal warm-up for a pliability session, moving your workout around for one of these new workouts, and then putting a pliability session in at the end to, again, rather than your cool down. So it's the same amount of time. And actually what you'll see with the workouts that I've put in the book, it's very, very little time. Rather than spending hours in the gym, you are literally, well, most days you're not spending any time in the gym. It's just literally that, nip to the toilet, do 20 minutes, do 20 seconds, not 20 minutes, do 20 seconds of squats, press-ups, burpees, you name, you choose your poison, depending on what you want to achieve. Again, all that is in the book. I think I've hammered that point home now. So that is it for me for today, guys. I hope that helps. I hope that keeps some of you guys out there kite surfing, surfing, snowboarding, wakeboarding, jumping off buildings, whatever it is you want to be doing till you are 90, because that's the goal of this channel. So if you like that, guys, you subscribe, like, thumbs up, follow, whatever, depending on where you're watching this. And I will speak to you in the next video. Ciao for now.